Hello and welcome to the Matt's Movie Reviews Saturday Conversation Show, an interview series where I talk to entertainment personalities, content creators, and filmmakers about their work and love of film. Today's guest is Luke Sparke, the prolific filmmaker from Queensland, Australia, who since his 2016 feature film directorial debut, Red Billabong, has delivered several locally made productions of indie spirit and blockbuster aesthetic. Luke's latest film, Primitive War, just might be his biggest yet. An action war sci-fi set during the Vietnam War in pits an elite team of soldiers against savage dinosaurs. Primitive War is currently still available in cinemas in Australia and playing in theaters in the US as well. Make sure you go to all your different websites to check out where you can find a session. Watch it in cinemas, people. Do so. We have to make sure we stand behind our indie filmmakers and make sure we get indie films represented in cinemas. And joining me now to talk about Primitive War and just his career as a whole, Mr. Luke Sparke. Luke, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Matt? It's been a while since we talked. Thank you for having me on.
Well, thank you so much for coming back on. Has been a little while, but during that time, you've been incredibly busy. I think the last movie we talked about was uh, Bring Him to Me. I think was the last one we talked about.
Yeah.
Ever since then, you've had Scurry, now Primitive Wars. Yeah, there's another one in between there as well. I'm just trying to catch my bearings here. Your filmography.
I think that's been it. I went back to back from Bream to Me to Scurry to Primitive, and
There we go. Yep.
Scurry hasn't come out yet, so just one screening, and it's coming out soon. But yeah, it sort of went the other way. Shot it first, but being released after.
Primitive is like, well, just talking off air just now. I think is like the ultimate kind of Luke Spark movie, and we'll get into more later as to why that is. But let's just talk about the last several months, really. First, that trailer hits, and it's really interesting the timing of the trailer. I think the Jurassic World, whatever it was called, Rebirth or whatever it was, came out maybe a couple of weeks before that. People were like ho hum about that. Then Primitive War trailer comes out, and people are like this is a dinosaur movie we've got looking for, goes viral. Last time I saw had over 2 million hits on the official channel, and so many others places have posted it since then. Then you have that, and then you have all the fanfare from that, which leads to Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con, first Australian movie to ever headline one of those panels that they have there in Ballroom 20. You've done that, and now the movie comes out, still playing in cinemas in Australia. It's get expanded release because word of mouth is so good. Cinemas and theaters want to show it. And all I've got to say is like, mate, how are you feeling now? I mean, the movie's out. You've got all this build up towards it, and then now it's out and people are loving it and I want to see more of it. More theaters are showing that. This has to be kind of like where all the other films is kind of built up, I think, to like this moment now where I think like the Luke Spark kind of like the as a filmmaker has really kind of like just hit that kind of groove, and right now people are just really riding that wave with you.
Yeah, I mean, you said it in a nutshell, everything there. That's an amazing piece to look back on. But yeah, I mean, I guess two things that come to mind. One is relief. It's relief that at least it was worth the hype. At least it delivered on the hype. I feel, and from the feedback and from what I've been told, it has, which was great. So that's obviously a big relief. And second, for me, it's always let's get on to the next one. I
Mm.
never like to sit still very long. And use this as a calling card, launch pad, whatever you want. I've been in LA. I just got back on the weekend while we were launching the film there, and I took a lot of meetings around town. And the word is, yeah, like this is now my calling card, and it shows what we can do. And even though I've been building to this for 10 years, it's kind of like that last 10 years is just the build up, and now comes the real work.
Even though you have always had that kind of philosophy, it's like move on to the next one. You got to be able to sit back a little bit though and kind of just enjoy this moment right now about what this film and especially kind of brings to you both as a career and just in a personal kind of like way as well.
Yeah, no, totally. Like, and I spent time in LA, just even though I was busy, I did spend time just sitting back and it's a great if LA is ho hum either way, but it's great if you have released a film because it's kind of like the dream, right? You go to LA, you release a movie, it lands. There's billboards on Sunset Boulevard. There's billboards in New York. So yeah, I got to experience that firsthand. and sit back and sort of take it in and enjoy and hear the feedback and talk to people and yeah, it was really good. It's been a great experience, especially after Comic-Con and Comic-Con itself. For me, being a huge fanboy of many different fandoms around the genres, to go there and to have a film at San Diego, which I live stream every year from Australia. I have ever since I was a kid, was just an awesome experience. Especially to walk in, like you said, we had the teaser that went viral. And that's all we had at that time because we launched the second trailer at Comic-Con. But all we had was one teaser. It wasn't a reboot. It wasn't a sequel. It was like an original sort of piece off a book. And we were out in the holding rooms beforehand, and they were like, "Oh, attendance is down. The one before you only has like 200 people, so don't. It's not you. It's just the market." And we walked out there, and it was like it was packed, and then people kept coming in, and by the end, it was standing room only in a 4,000 seat theater. With a great reception to us and the cast and the trailer. It was just a awesome experience. So San Diego Comic-Con definitely was one of the best experiences I've had as a filmmaker.
And I want to remind everyone again, first Australian film, like proper Australian movie to headline a San Diego Comic-Con panel as well, which is just a remarkable achievement on its own. I want to go back. I want to get in that DeLorean, go that time machine, go back a little bit here. And because I always like with these conversations, just to talk about kind of like the infancy of where they kind of like those film seed kind of happened with our guests. Sometimes it starts with that first cinema experience. Do you remember the first movie you watched at the flicks, Luke?
I do actually remember it, and it's funny for this movie because it was The Land Before Time, the first one,
Okay.
if I remember. It might not be the first one I saw as a kid or a baby, but it's the first one I remember in the Milton Theatre in the south coast of New South Wales, down near Ulladulla past Sydney. Yeah, I saw it. It was a amazing heritage theatre with double stories, and yeah, we saw Land Before Time, and potentially that got me into the love of dinosaurs. But yeah, it's funny enough that that's the first one I remember.
I read that you were making kind of like stop motion movies when you were 12 with your G.I. Joes and such. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, with again South Coast New South Wales, so it was we were kind of like the 1990s didn't hit until the 1980s didn't hit till 1990, so we were like really
Hmm.
sort of way down in the sticks. So I didn't really have much in the way of the film industry apart from VHS shops or Beta back then. I remember hiring Beta movies. But yeah, I used to get stop motion with my G.I. Joes. And then eventually when Jurassic Park came out, I switched up to having some dinosaurs come into their stop motion soldier type things, which is again hilarious for this movie. But yeah, G.I. Joes and stop motion animation was my thing for a while.
My oldest son, Michael, he's 12, turning 13. He's into stop motion now. He absolutely loves it. He watches the old Godzilla movies, like the Toho ones, and
Yep.
anything Ray Harryhausen and all that stuff. So he makes his own stop motions, but he has a computer, he has programs, all that stuff, cameras. What were you using back in that time in the 90s to make your stuff with? What type of equipment did you have as a 12-year-old Luke Sparke making his own movies?
Yeah, I had a really basic camera. That was like the one of the first digital ones that we could get down there, and my parents could get in the sort of late 80s. I can't remember the actual brand, but it was like a really early digital one. And it was just literally just you could only edit it on the camera itself with little buttons at the back. But it was more just for me, like just to do it. It wasn't like I screened it to anyone else. I would, or I'd make a little, or I'd get a whole bunch of photos and literally just make a flip book, and literally just do it like old school flip book photos and that. So it
Mm.
was more for me. The fun of making them was more finding camera angles and going low to the ground on the little action figures and having all different setups and storylines for them. But yeah, that's just kind of what I would do with my spare time.
What was your introduction actual to the film industry in regards to the business side? Because from what I've read, it was kind of like more, for what I remember in the previous discussions, it was more kind of like in the costume design side, more production side. And is it true that on The Great Raid, which was this movie that came out in 2005, you were turning 18 on the set, so you couldn't do any work then until you turned 18 and then you could do work on that movie?
Yeah, yeah, that is all true. I've said it all in the past. Yeah, so my introduction to the film industry. So while we're at the South Coast, in that particular time period. My father was really heavily into collecting military costumes and props. He has been since he was a kid. And around that time, really started getting big with Anzac Days and historical commemorations. And the War Memorial reached out because Canberra was quite, sort of a jump over to Ulladulla. The War Memorial reached out for the unknown soldier returning in 1991. And the business got sort of like that was like the first sort of big job that we landed as a company. So I was always around military, historical equipment that which then morphed throughout the years. We moved up the coast and eventually ended up in the Gold Coast near Warner Brothers, and we brought out we purchased the Warner Brothers costume department. They wanted to sell it off, all the old costumes right back from the uh what's this show? Mission Impossible TV series and everything
Hmm.
like Skippy and all this kind of stuff. You walk down rows and rows of costumes and there'd be labels of just these amazing old Australian TV shows right up until, the sort of late 90s. And they wanted to sell it all off, and we ended up buying the majority of it, which then sort of landed us as like a go-to point from Warner Brothers to say, hey, we don't have it anymore, but go check out the Sparks. They have all the costumes, which then led to like a wider conversation in the film industry about who has it. But yeah, the eventually led to The Great Raid, which is 2002, coming over here. The war films were kind of big after Saving Private Ryan. A lot of the same team from Private Ryan were hired onto this film and came out to the set here. So I got to meet and have lasting relationships even to now with people on that show. But yeah, they wouldn't let me on until I turned 18, which was really annoying because at that point I probably knew a lot more than people working on that show when it comes to the military. So I had to wait till I turned 18. I was working in the peripherals on the outside and doing costume stuff for our business, passing it over and all that kind of stuff. And then eventually when I turned 18, I could go on set and actually be on the set and work with the team. So yes.
Hi guys, Matt here from Matt's Movie Reviews, letting you know that the Matt's Movie Reviews YouTube channel has launched channel membership. This provides exclusive videos and other cool stuff as well for all channel members. It's under one tier, one price, and with that one price you get exclusive reviews. For example, I'll be going through the American Film Institute's top 100 movies. So every week I'll do a new review based on that movie list. You can get exclusive reviews based on your requests. Request a movie review and I will review it for you. You'll also get exclusive content for behind the scenes stuff as well. You also get exclusive interviews that I haven't posted yet as part of my podcast, like older interviews with Academy Award winners and other great filmmakers and actors as well, and a bunch of other cool stuff as well. I hope you can all join up, be part of this great experience I have an offer for you. Support indie content creators, support a movie critic like myself who is trying to make it through the content creator space. Matt's Movie Reviews YouTube channel memberships. Please join and get some great exclusive content. I'm just going to shift gears here a little bit. There's a game I like to play with my guests. It's called Choose Between Two. Essentially, Luke, going to give you an option between two things, and you're going to choose one, and you're going to
Okay.
elaborate on it. Are you ready to play?
Sure.
Okay, let's go to the first one here. Steven Spielberg or James Cameron?
That is so tough. I'm gonna have to go Spielberg, because I just love the sensibilities and childlike, almost childlike motion of him, and also just the way he plays with the camera. Yeah, can't go past it.
I asked this of another person as well, another filmmaker, and they also said Spielberg. And one reason they said as well is because they felt that Cameron has kind of, I don't know, locked himself in a certain situation with those Avatar films where he's taken like 5 to 6 years between films where, and in that time, Spielberg has maybe released two or three films in that time and they're still of high quality, still really well. Do you think someone as yourself who's like always looking for the next thing, very prolific, do you think Cameron's kind of like just kind of handcuffed himself in a certain situation? Or is this what we kind of have to expect from James Cameron, considering he's always been very meticulous with the work that he's done?
Yeah, I mean, I've got huge respect for both of them. And if he really is passionate, it's all about passion, you know what I mean? If he's that passionate about Avatar, I get it. Would I like to see more James Cameron films outside Avatar? Of course. But if he's, and for me as well, like if I could just, if someone came to me and said, you will just keep making a certain film forever, as long as I had the passion and the ideas for it, then I can see why you'd be Um, you know, so chained to it.
Next one. This is the battle of the action sequels. Mad Max 2, Road Warrior, or Terminator 2, Judgment Day.
These are hard questions. Come on.
I know. I know. I've
Um,
done my research. I know.
these are hard questions. Look, uh, they're both really good. They're both amazing films. They're both probably one of the best action sequels ever made. So I don't think there's any wrong answer. I'm gonna say Mad Max 2, just because I love the gumption of the Aussie filmmaking. I love that that film stands up to something like Terminator 2. And
Mm.
Terminator 2 is a great film, and it probably is maybe the greatest action film ever made. Um, but the gumption and everything else that Miller brought to the sequel to Mad Max, and just the fact that I can still you can still watch it today and just be like, what a great film. So I'm gonna go with The Road Warrior.
Next one this might be a little easier for you. You're watching a movie. What effects do you like to see more, CGI or practical?
It's probably not as easy as you think.
Hmm.
Well, when I'm watching a movie, my first thought is I'd love to just just not have to worry about it. You know, the things are just presented to you, and you don't even thinking about what's that. It's the worst thing when you're watching a movie, especially filmmakers like myself. And if you don't really getting into it, your mind starts wandering. That's when you start watching the edit, and you start watching the acting, and you start watching the effects, and then you start just doing a breakdown. And I do that more often than probably I should. But look, I practical effects is tough. Like I would like obviously, look, the answer is going to be practical effects. Um, because it's an art form that we're kind of losing, and I know why, because of money and time and everything else. And trust me, I would know more of that than anyone. Um, and practical effects are hard because if you don't do it right, it's great to say. And I've done practical. You know, we've talked about this in the past. Red Billabong and Occupation One. And Occupation One. Look, I can say I tried to go practical, and some of the aliens don't look very good. The practical stuff. And it's tough because if you don't have all of that behind you, if you don't have a Stan Winston or don't have like the people that actually know the stuff, then that's why on Primitive War, I kind of lean more into the other way because I'm like, if you can't do it right, let's find a way we can make it look okay and then look right. And I could do
Hmm.
it that better with the digital guys who were much more on my level, much more on our ideas and everything else, and worked it all in together rather than going, we're going to do practical dinosaurs. And then you have some janky head going, and then people go, that's just terrible. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
you can't put a little caption on the screen being like, but we did practical. It's okay because it's all about the immersion. It's all about how to make it real. So I'm going to say practical with the caveat,
Um, what do you like watching movies on, with physical media or streaming?
physical, physical.
Physical media.
Yeah, like streaming's here to stay until it's not. But physical is never going to go away. And I always tell people, just like Chris Nolan, make sure you grab it on physical. And I actually work into my contracts these days into distribution is you must release it on physical.
Oh,
I,
cool.
I had a few films, including like Bring Him to Me, where it didn't get a Blu-ray release. It didn't. Some countries didn't even get a physical release, and I didn't like that. So now I'm actually working into contracts, and it's a pretty sticking point. My lawyers are like, "Can we just let that one go?" I'm like, "No, no, it has to be physical release."
That's really cool. Good on you for that one. Last one. You're at the cinema. What's your go-to snack? Popcorn or candy?
Maltesers.
Oh, yes. That's a really, yeah, I know. You know the only problem with Maltesers? There's never enough in the bag. No matter if you even get the biggest bag. I can smash a bag of Maltesers in record time.
Never enough. Yeah. I used to like Jaffas, the orange little orange balls.
I remember those. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Last time I had them, I think it was in like 1990, whatever the time the Indiana Jones Last Crusade came out, and we were down the south coast, New South Wales, and it was a place called Brule Lake down near Ulladulla, and it had an open air theater. I don't think I've ever seen many around, if at all, anymore. There was an open air theater, and my father was the projectionist, and they played The Burbs and Indiana Jones Last Crusade back to back. And I had a massive bag of Jaffas, and I couldn't open it. And I got it open, but it exploded, and the
Oh no.
Jaffas went everywhere. And because it was a descending open air theater, all people could hear was just the Jaffas rolling down the thing.
That's funny. Yeah, I remember Jaffers. That's pretty funny. I want to talk about some of the other early stuff you did before you were like doing filmmaking, like as a director. Because you did costumes on Beneath Hill 60, the Pacific, you were standby on that as well. What were those experiences like for you? as a young bloke in the industry, kind of like just making your way through?
Yeah, I mean, the Pacific is and still was an amazing experience, and something that I'll never forget because it was like basically my film school. Even though I had the lead up of working on The Great Raid and a bunch of other shows and working in costume with my family all the years, the Pacific was like we walked in day one when they got to Port Douglas. So we were really early in the process, and I got to read all the early scripts, and most of them didn't even get, like, all of them got rewritten by the end. And some of the early scripts, when you read them, they're actually better than, I think, in my opinion, better than what actually came out on the show. So it was interesting even to see that point for someone that wanted to be a filmmaker. I got to like talk to the writers and meet them on set and see the whole process as well. So yeah, look, it's an experience I'll never forget because we walked in day one and we were also like one of the last to leave like a year later. So I got to spend a whole year working on 10 episodes of HBO's, highest, it was like the highest budgeted show at that time. And just the amount of crew and cast and extras and the day-to-day scheduling and talking to the ADs, everything on that show I still use to this day, including Primitive War. So it was an amazing experience, but I don't know how I can top that as an experience in life.
There's a movie that I came across that you were trying to make, and I know you and your dad were kind of like working hard to get it done, the 34th Battalion. And I was reading like articles like kind of like pre-production on the way, casting, Stephen Lang, was it Liam Hemsworth, I think was attached to it as well. And then, sometimes these things happen, movies just kind of like they fall apart and stuff. Do you still view that film as the movie that got away, or do you still view that one as one that can still be resurrected in the future?
I'm going to resurrect it. I'll plant my flag in this podcast and say that I'll do it at some point. It was hugely disappointing to have that go the way it did. Outside sources and everything else, as you know, in stories in Hollywood and everything else, things come, things go. It was looking like it was we're literally, in pre-production. Yeah, so I will get that film done at some point.
Filmmakers do listen to this podcast. I get people get in touch with me and they talk about how they love hearing kind of like advice from people who are in the business and doing it right now. When you have a situation like that with 34th Battalion, how it's like kind of ready to go, but then slips out of your hands, what do you learn from experiences like that? Do you kind of take from that, well, that's just the industry, or is there a certain sting that still comes from something, an experience like that?
Yeah, it's certain things. It's having, obviously, every time you make a movie, you learn things, good things and bad things. On that one particular, it was really making sure the right people were in the place, which they weren't. A lot of people, took us, for want of a better word, in my opinion, for a ride. And there can be some pretty sleazy people in the film industry, especially overseas. And there's obviously amazing good amount of good people as well. But that particular story. So coming off of that taught us a lot about that side of financing and producing and everything else. So. Yeah, yeah. But the funny thing is, like, I didn't start off to direct that movie. It was our script. We had a couple other directors. Eventually someone was like, Luke should just direct it. And that's when I sort of started getting sort of like, hey, maybe I could. And I storyboarded the whole movie. And if someone said, and then back then, some people in the industry out here were like, well, Luke Sparke can't direct a movie, he's costume and blah, blah, blah. And that was also another reason why it didn't, a lot of people thought it was too big. And if someone asked me today to film it, I would just go and pull those same storyboards out and I'd film it exactly the same. Because I knew I could do it back then, and I would just film the exact same movie now.
Um, you were saying before when we talked about Mad Max 2 that you'd love the gumption, the Aussie gumption, that was behind that movie. And that Aussie gumption is definitely something that lives in you and your filmmaking and your movies. And one of the main things I really love about watching your films is that gumption. And you have that, as I said in my introduction, it's an indie spirit, but you have a blockbuster aesthetic. You want to make big movies, and you're making them but with that indie kind of heart, which a lot of times, a lot of these kind of like core films within the genres really are kind of like almost like indie films in a certain way. Like the first movies in a certain franchise, they're the smaller films, and then afterwards comes like the big money and all that kind of stuff. With that in mind, when you look back on especially the two occupation films that you made, which to me, still to this day, I one of my favorite scenes in like an Aussie film. is that scene in the first occupation when they're on a footy field and the aliens land and they come out. Because to me, it's kind of like these meeting of these two kind of things where at one end you're making kind of like an Aussie movie set on an AFL field and it's like very much like, the local environment and everything else. And then you got this galactic kind of presence that kind of come into it. And we don't see that in Aussie films like at all. And then you have it here. To me, it's still one of my favorite kind of scenes, because I remember watching that at a screening and going, yes, we need more of this. I really enjoyed that very much. And then the second one, especially, I was like a big fan of Occupation 2, Rainfall. When it comes to kind of marrying those two things together, was it ever a thing where people kind of say to you, we don't do that here? This is Australia. We do lantanas. We do, the kind of like eccentric, maybe battle hardened kind of movies. We don't go for these big ideas because A, we don't have maybe not the money or maybe not the resources. Do you kind of get that kind of blowback? And when you do, what's your kind of reaction to that kind of feedback?
Okay, so yeah, yes, I get that every
Mm,
day in the film industry, even to this day, even after making all the films, no matter where I go, no matter who I pitch to in Australia, that's what it comes back with. It's very disheartening. Um, and what I say to them is I say, oh, let's go do it myself then. And the
yeah,
proof is in the pudding because I do. You know what I mean? I don't talk about it. I do it. And the annoying part is I mean, maybe they're right. I mean, talking candidly, um, in a way, these films come out in Australia, but it's very hard to get Australians to go see Australian movies. So it's not just the people that are running the show; it's also getting it out there to the people. Because I feel like Australia, like South Korea, when I was in LA recently, everyone's talking about how South Korea has their really great, vibrant film industry. Japan, France all have those ones where it's like, hey, support these films. There's a percentage that's actually French films or films. We don't really do that over here. It's kind of like we're little America. And if it goes well in America, it's going to go well over here. If it doesn't do well in America, it doesn't go well over here. And anything that tries to break through in the meantime, like straight for Australia, is you go, hey, we'll make a big alien invasion movie based in Australia. That's cool. And I think the Aussie attitude is, I don't know, it's a weird Aussie attitude. Until it's not. But while it is, it's just this whole like, why are you doing that for? Why are you making this film in Australia? Why are you making Australians? I'm like, don't you want to hear our own voices? Don't you want to hear your voice in like an Independence Day movie? But it's Australia with Sydney Harbour Opera House and football fields and everything else. And they're like, mm, I don't know. Why is it not America? And I'm like, all right, that's kind of why the last couple of films I've made are kind of not based in Australia. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like I was going international.
yeah,
Like I get, across the middle America, I get more response to my movies. I had, an actor, I won't say which actor, but I had an actor walk out of the American premiere and they're just like, bro, you made more of an American movie than Americans make these days. You got the American
yeah,
flag in the background, you've got guys gun ho and GIs and I'm like, I'm a patriot either for Australia. I'm a patriot for Australia. I feel like I'm like a lost patriot in America as well. Like I just like those sort of movies that I grew up with in the 80s and 90s. And maybe it's a losing art form. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But it's what I like to make, and I wish Australians could just see it as an Aussie movie and go, "That's cool." I remember going to support Tomorrow When the War Began, and
yeah.
I thought that was when I walked out the same as you. I walked out being like, "Wow, we need to make." It helped inspired me before I became a director to become a director. I was like, Stuart has done a great action film here in Australia. That's awesome. Let's go make more. And again, that movie, I mean, there's no sequels made. It's like, come on. It's very difficult. I don't know why. I wish I had an answer.
I remember interviewing Stuart when that movie came out because but when I watched it, I thought to myself, yes, this is kind of like what we need right now. And not only that,
Yeah.
it's like the franchise. And around that time, the young adult kind of thing, Hunger
Yeah, yeah,
Games and such,
exactly.
really big. Book series. Kids have read this book in high school, and my wife was telling me, "Oh, we read that through high school and that stuff." And like you said, like there was no sequels or anything. And I think it comes down to a lot of times, like, and I'm gonna maybe get a little controversial here, but sometimes I find that when it comes to the movies or especially standing behind the local industry, there's a certain laziness that comes from consumers. They only want to put their money towards what they think will be, really good kind of feedback. But in the meantime, what they're doing is buying McDonald's and not getting the good beef. We make the
Yeah.
good beef, but no one's eating it. And the second thing is that I think there's also a thing where where I don't know whether it was the 90s or the early 2000s, I'm not sure, but there's a seem like to be a certain perception made from certain movies that came out during a certain time that Australian films are only one thing, and because of that, when someone says Australian film, they have flashes in their heads like, oh, it's going to be that, it's going to be that, and I don't like that. I like watching these things. And what really bothers me is that a lot of the movies that they're watching at the cinemas that they think is like American film has probably been made in the Gold Coast or in New South Wales or something like that. We made them here with our crew and our talent, but as soon as you put our accent on it, it just something kind of like just goes haywire in people's brains, and I don't want to get it. And that bums me out, it really does, because we make great genre movies and we've had great genre filmmakers, and I just wish that more people kind of just stand behind it. And I know myself, I really try my best to try to get people out there to watching Aussie films when they can. But I understand as well, talking to a lot of Aussie filmmakers, that it just seems like it feels like sometimes screaming down a well, and all you hear is your voice back.
Yeah.
So you go overseas, and sometimes when they go to the States, like you said, they find markets there, they find people there that are more open and receptive to it than they do here. And it's a bummer, but at the same time, it's a really good kind of like opportunity to still do your films and have people watch it.
Yeah. 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 100%. Everything you said.
The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is brought to you by Amazon Prime Video. One of the best on-demand streaming services available, Amazon Prime Video features exclusive Amazon originals as well as popular movies and TV shows. Watch Amazon Prime Video anytime, anywhere. I want to move on to this other game I like to play. Rapid fire questions. I'm gonna throw questions at you. Answer as quick as you can. You can elaborate afterwards if you want. And if you thought the other ones were hard, oh mate, just wait for these ones. All
Okay.
right. Well, maybe this first one might be easy. I don't know because I know my one. So, all right. I know you love Star Wars. Favorite Star Wars movie?
Empire Strikes Back.
Ah, very good. I remember watching that on. I think the first time I watched that was VHS. Did you watch that on VHS the first time, or did it? Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
DVD.
There's a picture of me on the Return of the Jedi beanbag in the 80s watching, I think, beta version of maybe VHS of yeah, Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, pre the George Lucas director cut whatever things he did later. Yeah, that's a good answer. My favorite's the first one. I always call it the fourth first, even though people call it the fourth. I call it the
I
first
get it.
because it
I
is the
get it.
first.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Next one. What is your favorite scene in an action movie?
Too many good action movies. Look, I'll do rapid fire. I'm just gonna say the scene in The Rock with Nicolas Cage when they all the Marines and SEALs come up into the shower room of Alcatraz, and General Hummel, played by Ed Harris, has a standoff with Michael Biehn, and they end up all shooting them all. It's probably my favorite
Mm.
action scene.
That's a great movie. I know people trash Michael Bay, but that's a freaking awesome movie. I
Well,
like that movie.
that's his best movie, I think, and he's made some good ones, and I think that's his
Yeah,
best one because it straddles the line between craziness and also grittiness. And I think Sean Connery really helps that movie a lot.
he does. Awesome. Ed Harris in it as well.
And Ed
Fantastic. What a
Harris, yeah.
film. Oh, and who was the bloke from Candyman? What's his name again?
Yeah, Tony Todd.
Uh, Tony. That's right. He's in it too. Next one. Is there an actor you would love to cast in your films? Do you have a vision having a certain actor appear in one of your films one day?
Ed Harris. We just talked about him. There's a whole bunch. Like my casting process when you see my movies is kind of like, why do you cast that person? Probably because I want to talk to them. Um, like okay, I'll say that. Mark Hamill.
Mark Hamill. Awesome. That's a
Yes,
good answer.
I would love to. I'd love to work with Mark Hamill. If you're listening, Mark Hamill, please work with me.
Last one, and you never know, this answer might sway Mark Hamill one way or another. This is important as well, by the way, this question. Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Yes,
I'm getting a lot of yeses lately. I was talking to a filmmaker last week, and he's in LA, and he's like trying to sway me on the pineapple train, and he says he makes the best pineapple on pizza, like, and he's got his own little like pizza kind of place. He's
right,
like, next time
right,
in LA, I have to go to his place because his pineapple on pizza is
right, right.
fantastic. And
I
I don't
can't.
know.
I get the arguments against. I don't like it too much. Literally just had it for lunch. So pineapple and pizza.
Very cool, very cool. Um, So I want to talk about the future with you. I know right now we're still riding high in the primitive war. It's going great out there, as we were saying before. Scurry is something that still needs to come out as well. Um, Occupation, Rainfall, Chapter 2, is that something that's still in the horizon as well? Because I was a big fan of Rainfall.
Yeah, look, it's a tough one. That was a sting, right? Rainfall's a very word we don't really talk about much around here at the moment in the office. We put everything behind that movie. It came out in the wrong time during COVID. The American distributor, or I guess I won't say too much, but the American distributor did not do us any favors. That's or I'll probably say that one, and that really sort of really hurt any prospects moving forward on that one. So, if you like that movie, I do have a, I don't think I've announced it before, but I do have a, I would say a spiritual successor to that movie that I'm working on currently.
Oh, very cool indeed. And I'm just looking here at your kind of the IMDb, and I don't know if I can trust IMDb or not, so I'm just gonna
Probably
just
not.
ask you anyway.
People keep adding
Um,
things.
do they just like add stuff on there all the time?
Yeah.
Fight for Your Life, is that something that's in the horizon as well?
Fight for Your Life. Yeah, again, something I took out, had a place pick it up. I'm still working with them how we can get that done. Again, really close, really one of those ones. It was super close. We had sets built, and then the actors strike hit. And at the
Hmm.
time, I said to the actors involved, I'm like, "Will you still do it if the strike happens?" And they're like, "Yeah, yeah, totally." I'm like, "Great." And then it happened, and then people get cold feet. And then it
Right.
was one of those ones where Scurry was a derivative because of that. So Scurry wasn't even on the cards. And then we quickly shifted it where we did Scurry while the strike was on.
Oh, so that's like a double whammy, COVID one thing and to strike the other. It
Yeah.
was it was a rough few years there, wasn't it? Because they hit the COVID and then the strike, and then there was a writer's strike too after that. So,
Yeah, and the COVID thing sucked because of, the different states and different
mm,
territories doing different things. Queensland was quite contained and letting people in, and we were like, all right, we're going to shoot something while the thing's on. And then again, just as we got all the green cards for the actors, the premier of our state decided to close everything, including the airports and everything else, and all the actors had to stop and go away, and the whole thing got put on ice. So it was definitely a hard couple of years when you're trying to make films out here.
when nowadays do you have Primitive War behind you, and you have all these other films behind you now, and you're kind of looking forward. Um, is your philosophy in regards to filmmaking, in regards to the business side, has that changed a lot over the years? Now you have more experience under your belt.
Of course, I mean, if it doesn't change, it'd be kind of insane, right? Insane's doing the same thing over and over again, hoping for a different result. So you have to change up the ideas every time. So yeah, I mean, look, I'm trying to get to a place where we can continually make films without too much of a hassle, because the hardest part of making a film is getting it together and financing it and that whole aspect. And then it's on set and everything else. So it's always a struggle. But yeah, I mean, my philosophy has changed a lot, and I'd love to get to a point where I'm getting hired by studios potentially. But in saying that, though, I still want to keep a real indie filmmaker spirit. So, and funnily enough, I went around LA, and a lot of the meetings I had with some very high up there people, they were like, "I'm so jealous of you. You're just out there making films. We have to do the slog of doing the Hollywood grind every day. My advice to you is don't do that. Just keep making indie films in Australia like George Lucas." And I'm like,
Hmm.
making indie films is hard. It's hard. Like no backing. It's just us. And they're like, dude, Hollywood is falling apart. Just keep doing you. And I was like, it's something that I've been thinking about ever since hearing it. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm kind of okay. I like as much as doing a million jobs is really difficult. I do actually enjoy it. So otherwise, why would I do it for? Because it's insane. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
Do you ever foresee future Luke's Spark or Spark films, I should say, productions where you're not the director, maybe just taking more of a producer kind of standpoint and having someone else direct the film? Like taking
Potentially.
people under your wing, having a team, kind of like I don't know, like a Roger Corman kind of style situation, maybe?
Yeah, potentially. Potentially. If I can get to a place where things are moving forward, where, I know I'm directing a film that year, but we want to have two others under our belt and I don't want to direct them, then totally. But to put that on me right now, like if Primitive War doesn't get me to a place where I'm feeling a little bit happier, I don't know what I can do, because like I threw
Mm.
everything in the kitchen sink at that movie. And last 2 years of my life, that's the hardest part, is the years of your life, and you've got kids and you've got this and you got that. So, it's just that time. Even few people in America pitch me some ideas themselves, and I'm like, look, it's cool. And you get to a point, and now I'm 40 now, and it's like, do I want to spend 2 years of my life doing this job? You know what I mean? Like, and if the answer is no, then I'm probably not going to do it because
Mm.
it's a lot of hard work.
I mean, I think though, just at the end of the day, that you really should just really applaud yourself and give yourself a pat on the back for all the stuff you've done because we've talked now. I think this is our fifth time we've talked now. So we talked
Really,
about Red Billabong, the two occupation films,
bring them to me.
and then Bring Them to Me, and now we're talking your career in Primitive War. And for me, I know that whenever I talk to yourself and Aussie filmmakers as well, who I've talked to, several different occasions over the years, is always brings me a certain sense of, um, uh, pride towards seeing how well you're doing. Not that I had anything to do with it all, just to see the development and evolution of it
No, I
as well.
appreciate that.
And I think it's really cool what you're doing now, man. And if Premier War does do what we all hope it does do, and it takes you next to that next kind of plateau and such, it'll be well deserved. And so far, I mean, extended screenings across the US, extended screenings in Australia, viral stuff behind it, the whole Comic-Con thing as well. I think it's fair to say right now, those 2 years have been pretty well spent here, and I think good on you, man, for that.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And it's I think Hollywood is kind of in a sense of they don't know what to do anymore because I had, for example, just one example, I had a company. I took Primitive War 2 before I made Primitive War, not 2, Primitive War to it, before I made it, and they passed. Fair enough. And then I was on set and I'm like, look, we're doing it ourselves. Here's some dailies. They passed. Okay. And then I sent them like 6 months ago, or maybe a bit over that now. I sent them a sequence with the dinosaurs all finished. And
Mm.
I'm like, look, now it's proofs in the pudding. And then they're like, well, for all we know, this could be the best bit of the movie, and you could have terrible ending and terrible beginning. So how would we come on board? And it's like, all right, I think this film just no one knew what to do with it. But luckily, my team and myself had this like we just knew it would work with the audience, and it's been proven. But even up until the first weekend, even then, still people were like, eh. And it wasn't until Saturday in America, this the first Saturday, suddenly like our Sunday was better than our Saturday. We were beating Ron Howard's movie Eden. And then the phone started just ring. And then people were like, we have to have this movie. And then I've got all the different
Mm.
buyers around the world being like, we got to buy it. And I'm like, well, you could have done this before, guys. Like, but hopefully this is the last time that happens. Hopefully now with this next, whatever film I do next, hopefully I can point to this movie and be like, come on, like just trust me. Like I'm not going to make a bad movie for myself. Like I don't want to do that. That's not the goal of the objective here. And I get that there is a whole string of companies out there that just like making those sort of straight to DVD movies. And I'm not going to say they're bad because every film, is, a work of art. But there's definitely companies out there that just love just to churn them out and just be like, and they've said, and they literally said to me, we don't really care as long as it just gets churned out. And that's definitely not what I want to do. I want to keep making films that are good.
And you are. And congrats to you for that. And Primitive War, for everyone out there who hasn't seen it yet, is playing in Australian cinemas, still playing in theaters across the US, to all my people out there listening to US as well. Watch it on the big screen. This movie was made for the big screen, as you heard then, because it's not only a movie made of a labor of love, but you're going to be watching a film that isn't like a sequel to a remake to a this to a that. You're watching a real artists that work here, independent filmmaking, like at its best here. And yeah, Luke Sparke, thank you so very much for your time. Yeah, welcome to the Five Timers Club and Matt's movie reviews. And yeah, man, congratulations to you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for watching the Matt's Movie Reviews channel. Please subscribe for more reviews, podcast interviews, and exclusive content.